In the dim halls of museums, behind glass cases where the lights fall just right, there are objects that seem to hold more than history. They radiate something else entirely, an aura of enigma, a whisper of forgotten ages, a presence that feels alive. Among these rare artifacts are the crystal skulls. At first glance, they are beautiful curiosities, human craniums carved entirely from clear or smoky quartz, so finely polished that they gleam like frozen water. Yet the longer one looks, the more unsettling they become. Their vacant eyes stare back, reflecting the gaze of the observer. And for some, it feels as if the skull itself is peering deep into the soul. These objects, whose origins remain tangled in shadow, have stirred equal parts wonder and suspicion for more than a century. The story of the crystal skulls is not one of simple archaeology. Unlike a shard of pottery or a rusted sword, these skulls refuse to fit neatly into timelines. They appear abruptly in the written record, often with dubious provenance, surfacing in the hands of collectors, explorers, and dealers. Some accounts place their discovery in the ruins of ancient Mesoamerican temples, where they were allegedly unearthed during expeditions. Others insist they have been passed down secretly, protected by indigenous elders or hidden away by secret societies. And yet, mainstream scholars, when pressed, claim most of them are modern forgeries created in the workshops of Europe. The tension between these two narratives, between sacred relic and clever hoax, is what makes the crystal skulls so endlessly fascinating. But to truly appreciate their mystery, one must step into the mindset of those who first encountered them. Imagine an explorer in the early 20th century, hacking through the dense jungles of Belize or Mexico, guided by local workers and stumbling across a ruin overgrown by centuries of vines. Among the rubble, the sun catches on something glimmering, stone that should not shine, a shape that should not exist. What they lift from the soil is not a typical relic, but the likeness of a human head rendered in a material considered magical by ancient cultures. Crystal. One cannot help but wonder what thoughts course through those who first beheld such an object. Was it awe, fear, or a dawning realization that history might be hiding something far stranger than textbooks admit? The crystal skulls are more than just art. They are symbols. Across countless cultures, the human skull has long been a reminder of mortality, of the thin line between life and death. But rendered in crystal, a substance associated with purity, clarity, and mystical power, the skull transforms into something else entirely, a paradoxical fusion of death and immortality, of decay and eternal preservation. To the Western mind, this combination feels eerie, uncanny. But in the traditions of the Maya and Aztec peoples, skulls were powerful icons of regeneration and transformation, reminders that death was not an ending but a passage. To carve one from crystal might have been a way of capturing eternity itself. And yet the riddle deepens. Modern scientists examining some of these skulls claim that their surfaces show no tool marks consistent with the primitive instruments available to pre-Columbian civilizations. Quartz, notoriously hard, requires advanced abrasives or diamond-tipped drills to shape with such precision. If these skulls truly date back hundreds or even thousands of years, their existence suggests either forgotten techniques or knowledge far exceeding what we believe ancient peoples possessed. This is where speculation flourishes. Some propose they are remnants of Atlantis, a lost civilization with advanced technology. Others argue they are alien gifts, seeded across the world as part of a grand cosmic plan. Still others insist they are nothing more than the handiwork of skilled but fraudulent artisans in 19th century Europe, capitalizing on the West's hunger for exotic treasures. Between these extremes lies a fog of uncertainty that no amount of analysis seems able to dispel. For believers, however, the skulls are not just relics of stone, but repositories of information, cosmic libraries encoded in crystal. Stories circulate of shamans who, upon meditating with the skulls, experience vivid visions, flashes of ancient cities, glimpses of star systems, messages of warning for humanity's future. Psychics describe the skulls as transmitters, like radios tuned to a higher frequency, broadcasting wisdom across the ages. Whether these experiences are born of imagination, suggestion, or something genuinely paranormal is beside the point. What matters is that the skulls invite such possibilities. They become canvases upon which humanity projects its deepest longings, for meaning, for connection to the past, for proof that we are not alone. It is this duality that makes the crystal skulls irresistible. On one hand, they are physical objects, measurable and testable, bound by the laws of material science. On the other, they are mythic vessels, surrounded by stories of curses, healings, and prophecies. Some claim the skulls bring misfortune to those who mistreat them, while others insist they radiate healing energy. Skeptics point to the power of suggestion, but the stories persist. In the hushed corners of esoteric circles, whispers abound of 13 skulls scattered across the globe, waiting to be reunited to unlock humanity's hidden destiny. Whether this is folklore, a new age invention, or a distorted memory of ancient prophecy, the idea lingers like a seed planted in the collective imagination. The allure of the skulls also lies in their refusal to be pinned down. Unlike other artifacts, they do not simply tell us about the culture that made them. They ask us to question whether the official narrative of history is complete. They nudge us toward uncomfortable possibilities, that civilizations rose and fell before our recorded timelines, that technology has been lost and rediscovered, that humanity's story is far older and more mysterious than textbooks allow. In this sense, the crystal skulls function less as objects of the past and more as mirrors of the present. What we see in them reflects our own worldview, our openness to mystery, and our willingness to accept that not all questions have neat answers. As the lights dim in those museum halls and the glass cases fall silent, the skulls remain. Their unblinking eyes continue to watch, decade after decade, as skeptics dismiss them and seekers revere them. Perhaps that is their true power, not in revealing a single definitive truth, but in forcing us to grapple with the unknown. They remind us that history is not as straightforward as we often assume. The human imagination and curiosity are eternal, and that somewhere in the tension between fact and myth lies a story waiting to be told. And so, the enigma of the crystal skulls endures, a riddle carved in stone, a message whispered through quartz, an invitation for those willing to listen. The crystal skulls did not enter the world's imagination all at once. They appeared gradually, one by one, surfacing in strange circumstances, their origins wrapped in uncertainty. To trace their story is to follow a trail that winds through dusty European curio shops, into the jungles of Central America, and through the vaults of the world's great museums. It begins, as so many mysteries do, in the age of explorers and antiquarians, when the hunger for ancient relics collided with the darker side of colonial treasure hunting. The first widely known skulls appeared in the 19th century, a time when fascination with the so-called New World was at its height. Expeditions funded by wealthy Europeans were crisscrossing Mesoamerica, often accompanied by looting, grave robbing, and a voracious appetite for artifacts. It was during this period that several crystal skulls made their way into private collections. One of the earliest documented pieces found its home in Paris, purchased in the late 1800s by the Musée d'Orsay. Another eventually came to rest in London, entering the collection of the British Museum. Both were acquired through antique dealers rather than archaeological digs, leaving their true origins obscure. Were they unearthed in ancient ruins? Were they crafted by artisans and passed off as authentic? Or were they deliberately planted to entice wealthy buyers? The truth was already clouded from the beginning. At the time, the public had little reason to doubt their authenticity. These skulls were presented as sacred objects of the Aztec or Maya, relics of civilizations whose grandeur was only just beginning to be appreciated in Europe. They were displayed with pride, admired for their craftsmanship, and even romanticized as evidence of a sophisticated artistry long overlooked by Western scholarship. The notion that pre-Columbian peoples could carve something so intricate from quartz fit neatly into a growing fascination with the exotic. Yet from the start, rumors of fraud clung to them. Whispered questions arose. Why were their surfaces so flawless? How could such precision be achieved without modern tools? And why did so many of them seem to pass through the same handful of dealers? Among the most colorful figures in this trade was Eugene Bobin, a French antiquarian who spent years in Mexico before returning to Europe with crates of artifacts. Bobin sold many items to museums, and it was through him that some of the earliest skulls were circulated. To this day, his role is debated. Was he a sincere collector who truly believed the skulls were ancient, or was he knowingly supplying replicas crafted in European workshops? Skeptics note that many of the skulls traced back to Bobin bear suspicious similarities in style, as if carved by the same hand. Yet defenders argue that his connections in Mexico gave him access to objects that others could not obtain. The ambiguity remains unresolved, leaving him a shadowy figure in the saga of the skulls. The tale might have ended there, confined to museums and curiosities, if not for a discovery that catapulted the mystery into global consciousness. In 1924, the English adventurer Frederick Mitchell Hedges, best known for his flamboyant character in Tales of Lost Cities, claimed to have stumbled upon something extraordinary while excavating the ruins of Lebanton in Belize. According to his later accounts, it was his adopted daughter, Anna, who spotted the glitter of crystal beneath a collapsed altar. What she lifted into the light was unlike anything seen before, a life-sized human skull, carved with such precision that even its detachable jaw moved smoothly, as if engineered. To those who beheld it, the skull appeared almost alive, its translucent features catching the sun and refracting light into rainbow patterns. It was and remains the most famous of all crystal skulls, the Mitchell Hedges skull. This discovery electrified the imagination. Unlike the smaller museum skulls, this one was anatomically detailed, polished to an impossible smoothness, and almost eerily lifelike. Mitchell Hedges himself spun tales around it, suggesting it was used by high priests of the Maya for rituals, capable of killing with its powers or transmitting visions across time. He described it as an object of both wonder and terror, a relic that carried within it the secrets of a vanished world. Newspapers of the era eagerly repeated his claims, and soon the skull was the subject of whispers. Was it a sacred tool of communication with the gods? A ceremonial object for human sacrifice? Or perhaps a relic of a civilization older than the Maya themselves? Yet even here, doubt lingered. Researchers noted that Mitchell Hedges never mentioned the skull in his expedition diaries at the time of its supposed discovery. In fact, the first clear record of the artifact's existence appeared years later, when it surfaced at a Sotheby's auction in London. Evidence suggests Mitchell Hedges may have purchased it from a dealer rather than unearthing it in Belize. Still, Anna Mitchell Hedges maintained her father's version of the story until her death, fiercely defending the skull's authenticity and recounting strange experiences around it. Lights appearing in its eye sockets, visions during meditation, and a sense that it possessed a consciousness of its own. Whether fact or fabrication, the tale only added to the aura of mystery. By the mid-20th century, several crystal skulls had been cataloged across the globe. Some resided in private collections, others in museums, and a few remained in the hands of indigenous communities who regarded them with quiet reverence. Each skull carried its own backstory, some grandiose, others mundane, but all were connected by a shared sense of the uncanny. Wherever they appeared, stories followed, of curses afflicting those who mishandled them, of healings brought to the sick, of visions granted to shamans and seekers. Their emergence was never just archaeological. It was theatrical, mythic, almost as if the skulls themselves were choosing their moments to reveal themselves. What makes these early accounts so compelling is the atmosphere of contradiction that surrounds them. On one side, respected institutions dismiss the skulls as clever 19th-century forgeries, carved by skilled artisans in Germany or France and sold to gullible collectors. On the other, adventurers, mystics, and even indigenous elders insist they are genuine relics of forgotten civilizations, objects imbued with sacred power and knowledge. Caught in the middle, the public has been left to decide which story to believe. And perhaps that is why the skulls continue to captivate, because they resist resolution, hovering between fraud and miracle, science and legend. By the time the Mitchell Hedges skull took its place on the stage of global mystery, the legend of the crystal skulls had grown beyond the confines of archaeology. They were no longer just artifacts. They were enigmas, provoking questions about human history itself. Were they remnants of lost knowledge? Were they symbols deliberately planted to awaken humanity at a later age? Or were they simply masterful works of art that, through coincidence and storytelling, gained a mythic life of their own? The truth remains uncertain, but what is clear is this. With their first appearances in the 19th and early 20th centuries, the crystal skulls began to weave themselves into a narrative that would only deepen with time, a mystery that still challenges us to this day. If the crystal skulls had only been curiosities, strange artifacts of uncertain origin, they might have faded into the obscurity of forgotten museum cases. What keeps their mystery alive, however, is the way they intersect with the rich mythologies of the peoples whose lands they are said to come from. In the stories of the Maya and the Aztec, in the carvings of temples and the chants of ancient rituals, the human skull held profound symbolic power. To them, death was never the final act. It was part of a vast cycle, an endless rhythm of creation, destruction, and rebirth. And within this cycle, the skull was not merely a reminder of mortality, but a key to transformation. When the crystal skulls appeared, they seemed to embody those very beliefs, like myth made tangible. Among the Aztecs, death was not a thing to fear, but a vital force. Their empire, rising in the highlands of central Mexico, revolved around a worldview in which the cosmos itself depended on balance. Light against darkness, life against death. Gods demanded offerings of blood to sustain creation, and the imagery of skulls and bones permeated their art. The god Mictlantecuhtli, lord of the underworld, was depicted as a skeletal figure, adorned with skulls, ruling over the vast realm of the dead. Yet his domain was not only about finality. It was the gateway through which all souls passed, the womb of regeneration. To carve a skull from crystal would have been to capture both the inevitability of death and the promise of continuation. The Aztecs also built entire structures known as tzompantli, skull racks, where the crania of sacrificed captives were displayed in orderly rows. These were not meant merely as spectacles of power, but as offerings, as visible acknowledgments that death nourished the gods, that the cycle of renewal required surrender. Imagine, then, the impact of finding a skull not made of bone, but of clear quartz. To the Aztec mind, it could only be a vessel of enormous potency, an eternal skull immune to decay, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. Whether such objects truly existed in their temples, or whether later collectors imposed this symbolism upon them, is impossible to know. Yet the resonance with Aztec cosmology is undeniable. The Maya, too, wove skull imagery into their myths, though their interpretation leaned more toward the cosmic and the cyclical. In the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiche Maya, one of the most haunting stories tells of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque. Their father, Hun Hunahpu, is killed in the underworld and his decapitated head placed in a calabash tree. The skull drips with supernatural potency, impregnating a maiden who approaches it. From this union, the hero twins are born, destined to defeat the lords of death and restore balance. Here the skull is not a symbol of finality, but a source of fertility, creativity, and new life. It is a paradox, death giving birth to life. And this paradox echoes in the gleaming crystal skulls said to hold both endings and beginnings within them. Skull motifs also appear in Maya art, carved into temple facades and painted onto ceramics. In some depictions, gods are shown wearing headdresses adorned with skulls, signaling their authority over cycles of life and death. The Maya calendar itself, with its intricate system of repeating cycles, reinforces the notion that existence is not linear but circular. Within such a worldview, a crystal skull might have been perceived not only as a sacred object, but as a kind of cosmic timekeeper, an anchor of continuity across ages. Legends among modern Maya elders sometimes describe sacred stones or skulls that contain the memory of the ancestors, tools through which shamans could commune with spirits and seek guidance. Whether these oral traditions directly reference crystal skulls is debated, but the thematic overlap is striking. Quartz itself held meaning in Mesoamerican traditions. Clear stones, sometimes called divine tears or stones of the gods, were used in rituals of divination and healing. Shamans gazed into polished crystals to seek visions, much as one might gaze into water or fire. To carve an entire human skull from such material would not have been a simple artistic choice. It would have been a spiritual act, magnifying the stone's power. Imagine a priest raising such an object during a ceremony, sunlight refracting through it, projecting beams of light across a darkened temple chamber. To the gathered faithful, it would have seemed as if the gods themselves were speaking through the skull, their presence made visible in rainbows of crystal light. Modern storytellers have woven these ancient motifs into new legends. Among them is the idea of 13 skulls scattered across the earth, each a keeper of sacred wisdom, each holding a piece of humanity's forgotten history. Brought together, they would supposedly unlock a revelation for all mankind. Though this specific prophecy appears to be a modern New Age adaptation, its power lies in how naturally it dovetails with Mesoamerican thought. The Maya revered the number 13, aligning it with the 13 heavens and the sacred cycles of their calendar. To link 13 skulls with cosmic destiny is not a foreign imposition, but an extension of principles already present in their cosmology. What complicates matters is the way colonial encounters distorted indigenous traditions. Spanish chroniclers often misunderstood or deliberately vilified the rituals they observed, labeling them as barbaric or satanic. In the process, much of the nuanced symbolism surrounding skulls was lost or flattened. For centuries, European audiences saw only horror in Aztec skull racks or Maya depictions of skeletal gods. It was only in more recent times that scholars and indigenous voices have reasserted the deeper meaning, that death, far from being a morbid obsession, was a gateway to continuity, a force of balance. When crystal skulls emerged into the public eye in the 19th and 20th centuries, they were filtered through both lenses, the sensationalism of the conquerors and the spiritual wisdom of the conquered. The result is a hybrid mythology that still colors our perception today. In modern indigenous accounts, skulls, whether of crystal or other materials, are sometimes described as guardians of memory. Elders speak of them as libraries, not of written words, but of living knowledge, vessels through which the voices of the ancestors can be heard. Some ceremonies involve speaking to stones, listening for echoes, or meditating upon objects believed to contain the breath of the past. Within such practices, the idea that crystal skulls might store information does not seem fantastical at all. It is simply an extension of a worldview where matter and spirit are intertwined, where the boundary between object and being is porous. To Western science, quartz may be inert. To traditional wisdom, it is alive. This convergence of myth, ritual, and artifact gives the crystal skulls their peculiar magnetism. They are not simply archaeological puzzles. They are embodiments of stories that stretch across centuries. To look at one is to see not just a polished stone, but a symbol dense with meaning. Death as transformation, crystal as purity, skull as portal. Whether they were truly carved by ancient hands or later by opportunistic artisans almost becomes secondary. Their resonance with Mesoamerican myth ensures that, authentic or not, they will always carry the weight of legend. They stand as reminders that the past is never silent, that even objects of uncertain origin can become storytellers, whispering of gods, ancestors, and the eternal dance between life and death. And so, when we gaze into the glassy eyes of a crystal skull, we are not just staring at quartz. We are looking into a mirror of humanity's oldest questions. What lies beyond death? How do we connect with those who came before us? What knowledge waits in the cycles of time? These are the same questions the Maya and Aztec wrestled with in their myths, carved into their temples, woven into their calendars. The skulls, whether ancient or modern, seem to carry those questions forward, inviting us to listen, to wonder, and perhaps to rediscover truths that civilizations once knew and we have forgotten. Quartz crystal has always been more than just a stone. Across cultures and ages, it has been regarded as something almost alive, a substance that seems to bridge the physical and the spiritual. It is no accident, then, that the crystal skulls are not carved from obsidian, jade, or basalt, but from quartz. The choice of this material feels deliberate, purposeful, even symbolic, as if whoever created them knew that crystal carries with it a sense of mystery, a power that transcends mere ornament. To understand the allure of the crystal skulls, we must first understand why crystal itself has fascinated humankind for thousands of years. Quartz is abundant, found on nearly every continent, yet has always stood apart from ordinary stones. Its clarity makes it resemble frozen water, as if time itself had been captured and solidified. Ancient peoples saw in this transparency a purity, an incorruptibility, something closer to the divine than to the mundane. In many traditions, clear quartz was believed to contain the breath of the gods or the essence of the cosmos. It was used in amulets, ritual tools, and divination. Even in societies with no apparent connection, crystal emerges again and again as a material of magic and reverence. Among the Maya and Aztec, crystal was associated with vision and prophecy. Shamans would polish small pieces into spheres or flat discs and use them as mirrors for scrying. By gazing into their depths, they believed they could perceive hidden truths, glimpse the movements of the gods, or see into other realms of existence. The reflective quality of quartz made it a natural medium for such work. It could distort, refract, and scatter light in ways that suggested a world beyond the visible. To carve an entire human skull from such material would have been to magnify this effect 1,000-fold. The skull would become not only a symbol of death and transformation, but also a literal instrument of vision, a tool through which one could peer into eternity. Outside of the Americas, crystal held similar significance. In ancient Greece, quartz was believed to be ice so deeply frozen it could never melt. The word itself comes from the Greek kristallos, meaning ice. In the temples of Delphi, seers used crystal and polished stones to aid in prophecy. In China, crystal objects were buried with the dead to ensure safe passage into the afterlife, their clarity thought to guide the soul. In Europe's Middle Ages, crystal balls became symbols of the magician, the seer, the one who could pierce the veil of reality. That the crystal skulls emerged from this universal language of crystal symbolism only deepens the sense that they are not anomalies, but part of a global conversation about the hidden powers of the natural world. Modern science, intriguingly, affirms some of these ancient intuitions. Quartz is piezoelectric, meaning it can generate an electrical charge when pressure is applied. It can also vibrate at precise frequencies, a property that has made it invaluable in modern technology. Quartz crystals regulate time in watches, store information in computers, and stabilize radio signals. In other words, quartz is a natural medium for storing and transmitting information, something our ancestors could not have explained in scientific terms, but may have sensed intuitively. If one entertains the idea that the crystal skulls are more than decorative, it is tempting to imagine them as repositories, cosmic data banks containing knowledge encoded in their crystalline lattices. Could it be that the ancients, or some forgotten civilization, discovered ways of using crystal that modern science is only beginning to explore? Even skeptics cannot help but marvel at the material itself. Quartz is among the hardest substances on Earth, ranking just below diamond on the Mohs scale. To carve it with such precision as seen in the skulls, especially in the most famous examples like the Mitchell-Hedges skull, would require tools of extraordinary sophistication. Modern lapidary experts use diamond-tipped equipment and high-speed rotary tools to achieve comparable results. For pre-Columbian artisans, armed only with sand, stone, and rudimentary drills, the task should have been impossible. Yet here these objects are, their surfaces smooth as glass, their curves symmetrical, their details astonishingly fine. If they were carved in ancient times, the material itself becomes part of the mystery, a choice that speaks not of convenience, but of a deliberate pursuit of permanence and power. The symbolic resonance of quartz also cannot be overstated. To hold a piece of crystal is to hold something that feels timeless. Unlike bone, which decays, or wood, which rots, quartz endures. A skull carved from crystal suggests immortality, the face of death transmuted into something indestructible. It is a paradox that commands attention. Death, the ultimate end, is here rendered eternal, incorruptible, beautiful. Such imagery would have had profound spiritual weight in any culture. It explains why so many people who encounter the skulls feel an uncanny pull, as though they are looking into a paradox made tangible. Stories abound of people experiencing strange phenomena in the presence of crystal skulls. Lights refracting in unexpected ways, sounds or vibrations seeming to emanate from within, even feelings of warmth or energy radiating through their hands. Science might explain some of this as optical effects or the suggestibility of the human mind. Yet the persistence of such reports suggests that crystal, as a medium, naturally evokes the sense of the mysterious. It interacts with light in ways that can dazzle the eye and stir the imagination. Combined with the human form of the skull, it creates an object that is not merely beautiful but haunting, uncanny, and compelling. This is why the material matters so much. If the skulls were carved from jade or obsidian, they would still be impressive, but their aura would be entirely different. Quartz crystal transforms them into something otherworldly. It invites the question, why crystal and why the skull? Was the choice symbolic, technological, or both? Were the creators, whoever they were, aware of quartz's properties and deliberately using it to craft not just an image but a tool, a vessel? Or was the selection purely aesthetic, guided by the beauty of the stone? The lack of clear answers ensures that speculation thrives. What we can say is this: the union of skull and crystal is no accident. Together, they form a symbol that transcends culture and time. The skull reminds us of mortality, while the crystal suggests eternity. One is fragile bone, the other unyielding stone. One is the end of life, the other the preservation of light. Bound together, they create a riddle, an object that whispers of life and death, past and future, matter and spirit. And it is in that riddle that their power resides. The skulls are not just curiosities. They are mirrors of our own deepest questions, carved into the hardest of stones, waiting for us to peer into their depths in wonder. When one stands before a crystal skull, perhaps in the hushed corridors of the British Museum or in a collector's private chamber, the first impression is not simply of beauty, but of impossibility. The curves are flawless, the symmetry exact, the smoothness almost unsettling. The material, quartz, so notoriously resistant to shaping, has been coaxed into the form of a human head with such precision that even under a magnifying glass the marks of labor vanish into perfection. It is here, in the question of craftsmanship, that the crystal skulls present one of their most tantalizing enigmas. Who made them? How are they made? And, most unsettling of all, when quartz is not forgiving. It fractures easily if struck at the wrong angle. It resists cutting. Modern lapidaries rely on diamond-tipped drills, rotary saws, and high-speed polishing equipment to tame it. Yet some of the skulls, most notably the Mitchell Hedges specimen, show no tool marks consistent with either modern machinery or the cruder methods available to pre-Columbian artisans. Early examinations by experts suggested they were shaped against the grain of the crystal, a process that should have caused them to shatter under pressure. Instead, they remain intact, polished to a sheen so flawless that light bends and refracts inside them like water. The paradox is unavoidable. Either the skulls were carved with a technology we cannot account for, or their origin is not as ancient as their legends claim. Skeptics argue for the latter. In the late 20th century, laboratory analyses were conducted on several skulls, including those in the British Museum and the Smithsonian Institution. Under electron microscopes, researchers detected traces of rotary tools, tiny grooves and markings that suggested the use of wheels coated with abrasives. Such tools became available in Europe during the 19th century, not in the jungles of pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. For these scientists, the conclusion was clear. The skulls were modern creations, carved by skilled European artisans and sold to collectors hungry for exotic wonders. The evidence seemed damning, and for a time, mainstream consensus dismissed the skulls as clever fakes. Yet even within this apparent debunking, anomalies remain. Not all skulls show such tool marks. The Mitchell Hedges skull, examined in the 1970s by Hewlett-Packard engineers, confounded expectations. Their report described it as mechanically inconceivable by known methods, noting its alignment with the crystal axis in ways that would have been extraordinarily difficult to achieve without shattering the material. The detachable jawbone, carved from the same single block of quartz, seemed to defy explanation. If it were truly a 19th century hoax, it was one of such staggering complexity that even modern experts struggled to replicate it. The scientists, trained to seek precision, found themselves admitting something uncharacteristic, that they did not know how it had been made. This divide between debunking and mystery has fueled the skull's legend. On one side are the skeptics, pointing to the booming 19th century trade in antiquities, where European workshops in places like Idar-Oberstein, Germany, churned out quartz carvings to sell as ancient artifacts. On the other side are those who argue that the skull's craftsmanship exceeds anything even these skilled artisans could have produced at the time. Caught in the middle is the public, confronted with two competing truths: the cold facts of science and the seductive allure of impossibility. What makes the craftsmanship debate even more compelling is the scale of the labor involved. To carve a life-size skull from a solid block of quartz without modern machinery would require decades of patient abrasion, grinding the surface grain by grain with sand or other minerals. Some estimates suggest it would take a human lifetime, or several lifetimes, to achieve the smoothness and detail seen in the Mitchell Hedges skull alone. Could ancient artisans have devoted such time and energy to a single object? Would a civilization invest such effort for the sake of ceremony or symbolism? To believers, the sheer impossibility of the task suggests either advanced lost techniques or assistance from something beyond human. And then there are the optical properties. Some skulls bend light through their eye sockets in ways that create eerie illusions. Looking into them, one can see reflections and distortions that resemble moving shadows, as if the skull were alive. In darkened rooms, candles refract into strange patterns, making the skull seem to glow from within. These effects might be explained as natural results of crystal geometry, but to the ancient mind, they would have been unmistakable signs of supernatural power. A priest gazing into such a skull might well have believed he was looking into the eyes of the gods, or that spirits were speaking through the play of light. Whether by design or by coincidence, the craftsmanship amplifies the sense of the uncanny. One theory proposes that the skulls were not carved with tools at all, but grown, shaped slowly through processes unknown to us, perhaps involving vibration or resonance. Such ideas echo fringe claims about lost technologies, where sound frequencies or other forces allowed ancient peoples to manipulate matter in ways that defy our current science. While mainstream archaeologists dismiss such notions as fantasy, They persist in the realm of alternative history, where the skulls are seen as evidence of civilizations with knowledge now forgotten, Atlantis, Lemuria, or even extraterrestrial visitors who left behind artifacts as messages or markers. Regardless of one's stance, the craftsmanship remains central to the skull's mystique. It is the intersection where archaeology, myth, and imagination collide. If they are modern fakes, they are masterworks, so exquisite that they have fooled not only collectors, but also captivated generations of researchers. If they are ancient, then our understanding of history is incomplete and entire chapters of human achievement remain hidden from us. Either conclusion is unsettling, and perhaps that is why the skulls continue to fascinate. They leave no comfortable answer, only questions that linger. There is also the human dimension. Consider Anna Mitchell Hedges, who spent decades traveling with her father's skull, allowing researchers, mystics, and the curious to gaze into its depths. Time and again, those who saw it up close reported feelings of awe, unease, or transcendence. Some swore they saw images flicker in its eyes, landscapes, animals, even stars. Others spoke of headaches, dreams, or sensations of energy coursing through their bodies. Were these experiences induced by suggestion, the power of expectation, or were they responses to something embedded in the craftsmanship itself? A harmony of angles and curves that interacts with the human mind in ways we do not yet understand. In the end, the question of how the skulls were made cannot be separated from the question of why. Their perfection, their difficulty, their mystery, none of these seem accidental. Whether carved in a European workshop or an ancient temple, the craftsmanship demands reverence. The skulls were not created as simple ornaments or toys for collectors. They were designed to provoke awe, to spark mystery, to challenge perception. They are works of art in the truest sense, not merely objects, but catalysts for experience, forcing us to confront the unknown. And perhaps that is the greatest craftsmanship of all, not in the quartz itself, but in the way the skulls continue to shape the minds of those who look upon them, even centuries later. Of all the crystal skulls ever discovered, none has captured the imagination or stirred controversy, quite like the Mitchell Hedges skull. Its fame rests not only on its size or craftsmanship, but on the story of its discovery, the family who guarded it, and the layers of secrecy, embellishment, and legend that surround it. Unlike museum skulls that sit quietly behind glass, the Mitchell Hedges skull seems to have a life of its own, an energy that has drawn explorers, scientists, psychics, and skeptics into its orbit for nearly a century. It is in many ways the skull that transformed a curiosity into a global phenomenon. The story begins with Frederick Albert Mitchell Hedges, an English adventurer, author, and collector whose life was steeped in the romance of exploration. He spent years traversing Central America, excavating ruins, documenting ancient sites, and acquiring artifacts for private and public collections. In his later years, he often claimed to have stumbled upon the skull in 1924 while digging in the ruins of Lebanton, an abandoned Maya city in Belize. According to his narrative, it was his adopted daughter, Anna Mitchell Hedges, then a young girl, who spotted the glint of crystal beneath a collapsed altar. She lifted it from the soil, and thus began the legend of a skull unlike any other, a skull said to possess mysterious powers and an almost supernatural presence. The Mitchell Hedges narrative is compelling, cinematic even, but it is also enigmatic. Expedition diaries from the time do not mention the discovery, leaving room for speculation. Was the skull truly unearthed in Belize or acquired later from an antiquities dealer? Historians and researchers have debated this point endlessly, poring over letters, auction records, and photographs. While some claim it was purchased rather than excavated, others point to Anna's lifelong insistence that the story of her discovery was true. Whether fact or fiction, the tension between these accounts contributes to the skull's mystique. It is in essence a mystery wrapped within a mystery. The skull itself is extraordinary. Carved from a single block of clear quartz, it is anatomically detailed, proportioned almost perfectly and polished to an unnatural smoothness. Its jaw moves with remarkable fluidity, and the eye sockets seem to capture and refract light, creating a haunting, almost lifelike effect. Scientists who have examined it, both in the 20th century and more recently, have marveled at the precision. The surface shows no signs of conventional chisel marks, and some analyses suggest techniques that were unavailable to pre-Columbian civilizations, leading to speculation about its true age and origin. Yet, like so many crystal skulls, it defies definitive dating. The lack of organic material for carbon testing leaves it floating in a liminal space between history, legend, and imagination. Part of the skull's allure comes from the stories that grew around it. Frederick and Anna Mitchell Hedges claimed that it could produce strange lights, that it could induce visions when meditated upon, and that it seemed to resonate with energy in ways that defied explanation. Visitors reported unusual sensations, tingling in the hands, waves of heat or cold, even fleeting images flickering in the periphery of their vision. Some described lucid dreams or inexplicable knowledge appearing in their minds. Skeptics dismiss these experiences as the result of expectation, suggestion, or coincidence. Believers, however, see them as evidence that the skull is a vessel for consciousness or a conduit to higher realms, a repository of hidden knowledge left behind by advanced or even extraterrestrial civilizations. The story of Anna Mitchell Hedges adds another layer of fascination. She became the custodian of the skull after her father's death, dedicating decades of her life to protecting it from both commercial exploitation and scientific disinterest. She traveled the world with it, allowing controlled access to researchers, spiritual seekers, and curious onlookers, all the while maintaining a careful narrative of mystery. Anna was steadfast in her belief that the skull was ancient, sacred, and powerful, insisting that it had a message for humanity, a message that only those with the right combination of intention, focus, and openness could perceive. Over the years, this devotion helped cement the skull's reputation not just as an artifact, but as an almost living entity, capable of interacting with those who approached it respectfully. What makes the Mitchell Hedges skull especially compelling is its role at the intersection of fact and legend. On one side, there are laboratory analyses suggesting the use of modern tools and historical records hinting at possible fabrication. On the other side, there are eyewitness accounts, personal experiences, and the almost mythic qualities of the object itself. Unlike other artifacts, it exists not only in physical form, but as a story, a narrative that has been shaped, embellished, and preserved across decades. Its power lies in this duality. It is simultaneously a puzzle for archaeologists, a source of spiritual inspiration, and a catalyst for human imagination. Over time, the skull has been woven into broader narratives of prophecy and esoteric knowledge. Some claim it is one of 13 ancient skulls scattered across the globe, intended to be reunited to unlock humanity's hidden potential. Others suggest it is a tool of Atlantean origin, left behind as a guide for future generations. While such claims cannot be proven, the Mitchell Hedges skull continues to serve as a focal point for speculation, drawing people who are willing to entertain the impossible. Its fame has permeated popular culture, appearing in documentaries, books, and even films, ensuring that its legend will endure long beyond the life of any one family. Yet despite its prominence, the skull has retained a sense of intimacy and secrecy. Unlike mass-displayed museum pieces, it has always been guarded, presented selectively, and approached with ritualistic care. Anna Mitchell Hedges' meticulous stewardship ensured that the skull would not be reduced to mere spectacle. Visitors report that the experience of seeing it in person, holding it, meditating near it, observing the play of light in its eye sockets, is transformative, even unsettling. There is a palpable sense that the object is aware of being observed, that it responds in subtle, inexplicable ways. This perceived vitality is rare in artifacts and adds to the aura of the skull as something more than mere crystal. The Mitchell Hedges skull, in this sense, embodies the paradox of all crystal skulls. It is at once a tangible object, made of quartz and carved with human hands, and an ineffable presence, a vessel for stories, experiences, and legends that transcend materiality. Its story is inseparable from the family that protected it, from the explorers who unearthed or acquired it, and from the countless individuals who have claimed to feel its power. It is a reminder that some artifacts exist not only to inform, but to inspire, to provoke, and to challenge the boundaries between reality and imagination. In the end, the skull's true nature remains elusive. Was it crafted centuries ago by a forgotten civilization, imbued with sacred purpose? Was it the product of skilled European artisans seeking to capitalize on fascination with the exotic? Or is it something else entirely, a relic whose origin may never be known, whose power is measured not in history books, but in human perception? The mystery endures, and perhaps that is precisely the skull's gift. By resisting definition, by existing in the liminal space between fact and fiction, the Mitchell-Hedges skull continues to captivate, to provoke awe, and to invite each of us to wonder what secrets might lie hidden, waiting for those bold enough to look beyond the surface. While the Mitchell-Hedges skull may be the most famous, it is far from the only crystal skull to capture the imagination. Across continents and centuries, reports of similar artifacts have emerged, hinting at a mystery that transcends borders and cultures. From the jungles of Central America to the highlands of Tibet, from the steppes of Mongolia to the ancient civilizations of Europe, crystal skulls, or objects strongly resembling them, have appeared repeatedly, as if scattered deliberately across the globe. These parallels suggest either a remarkable coincidence, the spread of knowledge through unknown channels, or perhaps something far more profound, a shared human fascination with the intersection of death, consciousness, and crystal. In Central America, aside from the famous skulls in Belize and Mexico, smaller examples have been recorded in museum collections and private hands. The Paris skull, acquired in the late 19th century, is carved from clear quartz and exhibits strikingly lifelike proportions. Similar skulls were reported in London, also attributed to French antiquarians. These skulls, though smaller and less detailed than the Mitchell-Hedges specimen, share a consistent style. Smooth surfaces, precise symmetry, and an uncanny resemblance to human anatomy. They suggest that either a sophisticated tradition of crystal carving existed or that a network of European artisans was producing them during a period when exotic artifacts commanded immense fascination and value. Yet the story becomes more intriguing when one looks beyond the Americas. In Tibet, local legends speak of sacred quartz objects shaped into human and animal forms, used by monks for meditation and spiritual insight. Some of these objects are small, handheld skulls, worn or carried as talismans. While these are often not life-sized, they share an important feature: the belief that the crystal acts as a conduit for energy, wisdom, or connection to higher realms. Anthropologists note that many of these Tibetan artifacts predate European contact, hinting at independent traditions of working with quartz in symbolic ways. The convergence of form and function across such disparate cultures raises tantalizing questions. Could there have been a common understanding of crystals' properties? Or is this the result of parallel human ingenuity, driven by the natural allure of the material? In Mongolia and Siberia, similar reports emerge. Ancient shamans are said to have possessed carved crystal skulls or skull-like objects, believed to contain spirits, ancestral knowledge, or the essence of celestial forces. These skulls were sometimes used in rituals to predict weather, guide hunting, or commune with the spirit world. Archaeologists have noted that quartz deposits in these regions were known and valued for their clarity and hardness, but little evidence exists of mass production. The few examples that survive hint at a painstaking and deeply intentional process, suggesting that wherever these skulls were made, their creation was not casual or decorative. It was sacred. Europe, too, has its mysteries. In Germany, the town of Idar-Oberstein became a hub for gemstone carving in the 18th and 19th centuries. skilled artisans produced objects of extraordinary precision from quartz, including skulls that eventually entered private collections and museums. Some researchers argue that many crystal skulls in European hands, and possibly even some in the Americas, were the products of these workshops. Yet even here, anomalies appear. Certain skulls exhibit techniques or optical properties that surpass what would have been achievable with known European tools of the time. Whether these are exaggerations, misunderstandings, or genuine mysteries remains a subject of heated debate. Across all these examples, a pattern emerges. Crystal skulls are nearly always associated with ritual, vision, or esoteric knowledge. In Mesoamerica, they are linked to death and regeneration. In Tibet, to meditation and spiritual clarity. In Mongolia, to shamanic guidance. In Europe, to the fascination with the mystical and exotic. Despite the vast geographic distances, the skulls share an unusual combination of qualities: anatomical realism, perfection in carving, and an intangible aura of mystery. This suggests either a remarkable universal impulse to imbue human form in crystal, or the subtle transmission of ideas across cultures whose connections remain obscured by time. Some theorists have taken this further, proposing that these skulls are relics of a civilization predating known history, a civilization so advanced it disseminated its knowledge worldwide, leaving behind crystal markers for future generations. Atlantean myths, for instance, describe a people whose technology and spiritual insight far exceeded what we recognize as possible. According to these accounts, such a civilization may have created objects capable of storing information or energy, scattering them across the globe to be discovered when humanity was ready. While mainstream historians dismiss this as fantasy, the parallels in crystal skulls across continents give the hypothesis a compelling, if circumstantial, resonance. Another possibility is that extraterrestrial influence played a role. Some researchers in the field of alternative history point to the uncanny precision and global distribution of crystal skulls as evidence that they were not products of human civilization alone. Legends of star people or cosmic visitors appear in the myths of the Maya, Dogon, and even in ancient European folklore. If one accepts, even tentatively, the notion of contact with advanced beings, the worldwide scattering of crystal skulls begins to resemble a deliberate act, seeding knowledge across the planet in a form that humans could eventually perceive, decode, or awaken. Yet perhaps the simplest explanation is also the most profound. Humans, wherever they have lived, have always been drawn to the skull and to crystal, symbols of mortality, of clarity, and of transformation. The convergence of crystal and skull form may be an expression of universal archetypes, the same psychological and spiritual impulses emerging independently in multiple cultures. The exact methods and origins may forever elude us, but the enduring fascination, the repeated emergence of these forms across time and space, hints at a deeper truth, that the skull and the crystal speak to something fundamental in the human psyche, a recognition of life, death, and the mysteries beyond. In every reported case, the global parallels reinforce a single idea. Crystal skulls are not mere curiosities, nor simple hoaxes, nor accidental coincidences. They are artifacts that command attention, inspire wonder, and provoke questions that cannot easily be answered. Whether as sacred objects, ritual tools, or repositories of hidden knowledge, they represent an intersection of material mastery and symbolic power. Their presence in multiple continents challenges conventional narratives of history, asking us to consider that human civilization, or perhaps life itself, may hold secrets that transcend geography, time, and even imagination. Ultimately, the global network of crystal skulls transforms the narrative from local legend to universal enigma. They're no longer artifacts confined to a single culture or a single discovery. They become a story that spans continents, epochs, and worldviews. A mystery that connects the ancient Maya to Tibetan monks, European gem cutters to modern seekers. Each skull is a chapter in a larger, still unfolding tale. And together, they hint at a truth that remains tantalizingly out of reach. That somewhere within these luminous forms, across deserts, jungles, and mountains, lies a message humanity has yet to fully comprehend. As fascination with the crystal skulls grew, so too did the desire to understand them through the lens of science. Unlike myths and legends, laboratory analysis promised objective answers. Were these artifacts genuinely ancient, or were they clever forgeries? Could their alleged powers be measured, or were they simply the products of imagination and suggestion? Over the past century, scientists across disciplines, from archaeology to physics to gemology, have examined crystal skulls with sophisticated tools, seeking clarity in the face of mystery. Yet the results, far from resolving the debate, often deepened it. One of the first serious studies was conducted in the 1960s and 70s, targeting several well-known skulls, including the Mitchell-Hedges specimen. Using magnification and microscopy, researchers scrutinized the surfaces for tool marks. The British Museum and Smithsonian institutions, which hold their own crystal skulls, observed grooves and abrasions consistent with rotary cutting tools rather than primitive chisels. In other words, at least some skulls appear to have been carved using technology that predated their supposed ancient origins. For skeptics, this seemed decisive. The skulls were modern creations intended to fascinate and perhaps deceive collectors who lacked expertise. Yet the findings were rarely straightforward. In certain skulls, like the Mitchell-Hedges piece, no clear tool marks were visible at all. Expert analysis suggested that it had been shaped with methods difficult to reconcile with either pre-Columbian or 19th century techniques. Hewlett-Packard engineers who examined the skull in the 1970s described it as mechanically inconceivable to produce using conventional methods. The crystal's internal alignment, the flawless polish, and the precision of anatomical features seemed beyond the reach of human craftsmanship at the time. These observations left a paradox. The skull appeared both modern and impossible, challenging scientists to explain what they were seeing. Material analysis added another layer of intrigue. Quartz, while hard, is also piezoelectric. It can generate an electrical charge under mechanical stress. Some researchers suggested that if the skulls were carved with an awareness of this property, they might act as energy amplifiers or resonators. This was speculative, but the skull's widespread reputation for causing tingling sensations, unusual heat, or a sense of vibration in observers lent a curious anecdotal weight to the theory. Whether these phenomena are psychological, physiological, or something more remains contested, but they illustrate a key point. Scientific examination does not always diminish mystery. In some cases, it can amplify it. Dating the skulls posed yet another challenge. Quartz itself cannot be carbon dated, leaving no direct method to determine its age. Researchers have attempted to infer timelines by examining where patterns, mineral inclusions, and historical records of acquisition. The results are contradictory. Some skulls clearly entered collections in the 19th century, supporting the theory of European craftsmanship. Others, like those purportedly discovered in Mesoamerica or Asia, have origins that remain ambiguous, leaving open the possibility of ancient provenance. In short, science provides clues, but rarely definitive answers, preserving the enigma rather than resolving it. Experimental replication has become another fascinating arena. Modern lapidaries have tried to reproduce the skulls using a combination of traditional and modern techniques. Some succeed in mimicking the shape, but the uncanny lifelike quality, the subtle symmetry, and the flawless polish of originals remain extraordinarily difficult to achieve. Each attempt underscores a tantalizing possibility. If human hands made the skulls in the distant past, the artisans possessed a level of skill lost to history. If they were crafted more recently, the level of expertise needed was nonetheless extraordinary. Either way, the craftsmanship defies casual explanation. Beyond tools and techniques, some scientists have considered the skull's alleged metaphysical properties, often met with skepticism. Researchers testing electromagnetic fields, temperature variations, or luminescence around crystal skulls found occasional anomalies, but these are not consistently reproducible. Laboratory studies cannot measure visions or energy in the way mystics describe, leaving a gap between empirical analysis and human experience. The skulls exist in this tension between observable phenomena and subjective perception, a liminal space where science and mystery coexist uncomfortably. Peer-reviewed studies have occasionally addressed this divide. In one 1996 analysis, a crystal skull in a European collection was found to bear unmistakable modern tool marks, confirming a European workshop origin. Yet proponents of the skull's ancient origin point out that this does not account for all specimens. Others remain untested, stored in private collections, or guarded by individuals who refuse invasive examinations. Thus, the debate continues, fueled by a combination of empirical evidence, anecdotal accounts, and the human desire to find meaning in the inexplicable. The scientific scrutiny of crystal skulls, also, illuminates broader questions about how knowledge is transmitted and preserved. If the skulls are ancient, their precision suggests techniques and understandings lost to time. Could the ancients have discovered ways to manipulate quartz that we only approximate today? If so, what does this imply about our assumptions regarding the capabilities of early civilizations? Science, in its attempt to categorize and measure, finds itself grappling with anomalies that challenge conventional timelines, offering only partial glimpses of possibilities that might otherwise seem fantastical. Perhaps the greatest contribution of science to the mystery is not proof, but tension. It provides the skeletal framework of what is possible and impossible, anchoring speculation while leaving room for wonder. By documenting tool marks, crystal structure, and material properties, researchers create parameters within which the skulls operate, but those parameters often highlight the skull's strangeness rather than diminish it. In this sense, science and myth are not opposites. They are complementary. One describes the how, the other hints at the why, and together they frame an enduring riddle that invites curiosity, awe, and endless questioning. Ultimately, the skull's scientific analysis underscores the core enigma. They are objects that straddle categories. They are at once material and symbolic, ancient and modern, explainable and ineffable. They invite both skepticism and wonder, empirical scrutiny and spiritual reflection. Each test, each study, seems to confirm the obvious. The crystal skulls are not merely artifacts. They are provocations. They ask us to reconsider our assumptions about history, technology, perception, and human experience. And in doing so, they preserve their essential mystery, ensuring that their story continues to captivate minds and imaginations across the world. For centuries, humans have been drawn to objects that seem to radiate energy beyond the ordinary. The crystal skulls, with their lifelike forms and flawless quartz construction, are perhaps the ultimate manifestation of this fascination. Across decades, thousands of accounts have emerged from individuals who claim to have experienced phenomena in their presence. Phenomena that defy easy explanation, oscillating between the mystical and the psychological. Whether skeptics dismiss them as suggestion, or believers embrace them as evidence of hidden powers, the stories form a compelling tapestry that deepens the skull's allure. One of the most commonly reported effects is an unusual sensation of energy when holding or being near a skull. Witnesses describe warmth or cold flowing through the hands and arms, tingling that travels up the spine, or a subtle vibration that seems to emanate from within the crystal itself. Some speak of an almost magnetic pull, as if the skull responds to the observer's attention. Modern science might attribute these experiences to expectation, suggestion, or physiological reactions, yet their consistency across hundreds of accounts suggests a phenomenon that cannot be entirely dismissed. Whether the effect is external or internal, the skulls compel notice, commanding attention in a way that ordinary objects rarely do. Beyond physical sensations, numerous individuals have reported visual phenomena, flashes of light, colors refracting in unexpected ways, or even the perception of moving images within the skull's eye sockets. One notable account involves a researcher who observed faint rainbow-like patterns forming in the Mitchell Hedges skull under dim light, shifting in ways that seemed almost deliberate. Meditators and psychics frequently describe visions of landscapes, ancient rituals, or starry skies appearing when focusing on the skull. These experiences often evoke a sense of narrative. The observer feels as if the skull is communicating stories from another time, another consciousness, a voice without sound that speaks directly to the mind. The skulls have also been linked to heightened intuition and psychic phenomena. Some individuals report sudden insights, precognitive flashes, or vivid dreams when meditating with a skull nearby. Anna Mitchell Hedges herself claimed that meditation sessions with the skull produced visions of ancient cities, ceremonial rites, and even warnings about future events. She described these experiences as subtle, requiring careful attention, but undeniably present. Skeptics argue that these effects are cognitive, resulting from concentration, expectation, or pattern recognition, but the sheer consistency and variety of accounts over decades challenge simple explanations. The phenomenon seems to operate at the intersection of perception, psychology, and something more elusive. A recurring motif in these experiences is a sense of connection to the past. Witnesses describe feeling watched or guided by unseen intelligence, as if the skull contains memory, consciousness, or spiritual presence. For some, this manifests as feelings of ancestral presence or communion with long-lost civilizations. Shamans and spiritual practitioners interpret the skulls as repositories of knowledge, vessels in which the wisdom of the dead persists. In this sense, the crystal skull becomes not a static object, but a dynamic interface between observer and history, between materiality and consciousness. The skull's form, the human head, reinforces this perception, acting as a mirror of our own humanity and mortality, while simultaneously suggesting transcendence. Some researchers have explored whether the skulls possess properties that can influence electromagnetic fields or human bioenergy. Experiments have produced mixed results. Small variations in local electromagnetic readings, unusual thermal patterns, and reports of changes in heart rate or brainwave activity have been documented, but none are consistent enough to be conclusive. Critics argue that these are natural artifacts or measurement errors. Believers maintain that the skull's effects may be subtle, conditional, or dependent on the observer's awareness. The tension between reproducibility and personal experience is central to the allure of the skulls. They are objects that resist full empirical capture, preserving their aura of mystery. Another dimension of mystical experience is the sense of healing or transformation. Many individuals have claimed physical, emotional, or spiritual changes after interacting with crystal skulls. Some report relief from stress, headaches, or emotional blockages. Others describe experiences of clarity, expanded consciousness, or even temporary shifts in perception of time and space. Whether these effects are psychosomatic or rooted in some deeper energy phenomenon, they reinforce the skull's reputation as conduits of subtle forces. Across cultures, crystal has long been associated with healing. In the case of the skulls, this symbolic power appears amplified by their anthropomorphic form and mythic associations. The skull's mystical properties are often framed within the context of prophecy and esoteric knowledge. Some New Age and occult interpretations suggest that the skulls serve as tools for awakening consciousness or accessing universal wisdom. One prominent theory posits that a network of 13 ancient crystal skulls is scattered across the world, each containing a fragment of collective memory or cosmic knowledge. When brought together, these skulls could catalyze an unprecedented understanding of human history, spirituality, or even the universe itself. While such claims cannot be verified, they resonate with long-standing human themes that objects, especially those shaped with care and intention, can act as bridges between the mundane and the sacred. Interestingly, the mystical accounts often intersect with scientific observation. Experiments involving light refraction, piezoelectric properties, and vibrational frequencies hint at potential physical mechanisms for some reported phenomena. Quartz's ability to store and transmit energy, combined with its clarity and structure, could plausibly account for visual or tactile experiences. Whether this explains the profound psychological or visionary experiences is unclear. What is certain is that the crystal skulls provoke reactions that blur the line between objective measurement and subjective perception, between material reality and human consciousness. The appeal of the skulls, then, is not only in their craftsmanship or historical ambiguity, but in their capacity to evoke wonder, mystery, and personal experience. They are simultaneously objects of study, objects of reverence, and objects of imagination. Each encounter, whether by a scholar in a lab, a psychic in meditation, or a curious visitor in a museum, becomes a story, a testimony to the skull's enduring power. In this way, the mystical properties and psychic phenomena associated with the skulls become part of the artifact itself, inseparable from its history, its myth, and its legend. Ultimately, the mystical dimension of the crystal skulls forces a fundamental question. Are these effects inherent to the objects, or are they reflections of human consciousness projecting onto them? Perhaps the answer is not binary. Perhaps the skulls exist in a liminal space between matter and mind, between reality and imagination. In doing so, they occupy a role that few objects ever achieve. They are mirrors for the human soul, catalysts for curiosity, and provocations for the imagination. Whether viewed as sacred tools, instruments of psychic exploration, or marvels of craftsmanship, the crystal skulls continue to captivate, unsettle, and inspire those who dare to encounter them. From the moment the crystal skulls entered public consciousness, whispers arose linking them to secretive groups and esoteric societies. These were organizations long rumored to safeguard hidden knowledge, preserving the wisdom of ancient civilizations, mystical teachings, or even cosmic secrets from humanity at large. Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and later New Age circles have all been implicated in the lore surrounding the skulls, and the stories suggest that these artifacts were never intended for casual discovery. Whether or not these claims are factual, they contribute to the skull's enigmatic aura, creating a sense that they are not mere curiosities but objects of power and significance. The Freemasons, with their centuries-old tradition of symbolic ritual and secrecy, are frequently invoked in connection with the crystal skulls. Their lodges often contain artifacts of apparent antiquity, geometric symbols, and tools of ceremonial craft. Some researchers suggest that the Freemasons might have acquired or even commissioned crystal skulls to act as repositories of knowledge, mirrors of human mortality, or instruments in ritual practice. The skull's precise geometry and reflective qualities would have aligned seamlessly with Masonic interests in symmetry, light, and hidden meaning. While direct evidence linking the skulls to Masonic lodges is sparse, the association reinforces the perception that the skulls exist within a web of hidden knowledge, accessible only to those initiated into the mysteries. Rosicrucian societies, whose roots trace back to early 17th century Europe, also feature prominently in the lore. These groups, steeped in alchemy, mysticism, and symbolic exploration, have historically sought objects believed to contain wisdom beyond ordinary perception. Some claim that crystal skulls were preserved within their archives, studied for their potential to enhance consciousness, reveal hidden truths, or act as keys to esoteric knowledge. The Rosicrucian connection underscores a recurring theme. The skulls are not simply aesthetic marvels. They're thought to be functional tools within a broader spiritual or intellectual system, objects designed to interface with human perception, energy, or understanding. Other accounts suggest that the skulls were deliberately scattered to prevent concentrated knowledge from falling into the wrong hands. According to some New Age interpretations, 13 skulls were placed across the globe by advanced civilizations or secretive societies, each holding a fragment of collective wisdom. The Mitchell-Hedges skull, the Paris skull, and skulls held in London, New York, and Geneva are often included in these theories. In this narrative, The secret societies act as custodians, ensuring that the skulls are neither destroyed nor misused, while simultaneously guarding their profound significance. Such theories resonate with human fascination for the hidden, suggesting that knowledge is not merely lost but deliberately protected, waiting for a time when humanity is ready to receive it. The concept of guardianship also intersects with folklore and legend. In Maya and Aztec traditions, knowledge of the sacred was often restricted to priests, shamans, or select initiates. The crystal skulls, in this light, are not anomalies but continuations of a global pattern: the selective preservation of wisdom. Across cultures, secretive custodianship appears repeatedly, whether in the encrypted scrolls of alchemists, the oral teachings of shamans, or the carefully guarded manuscripts of monastic orders. The skulls may have been designed for the same purpose: to act as vessels of knowledge that could only be accessed by those with preparation, insight, or spiritual readiness. Stories of attempts to access or study the skulls often involve resistance or misfortune, reinforcing the idea that they are not to be treated casually. Accounts exist of collectors or researchers encountering unexplained obstacles, sudden illnesses, or failures in technology when attempting to examine them. While skeptics dismiss these stories as coincidence, believers interpret them as a form of protection, an unseen hand maintaining the integrity of the skull's knowledge. In this sense, the skulls themselves become both object and guardian, embodying a dual role that is rare in the material world: at once art, artifact, and active participant in the drama of secrecy. The allure of secret societies adds a psychological dimension to the skull's mystique. By associating the artifacts with clandestine networks, the narrative heightens tension and curiosity. The observer is not merely looking at quartz. They're confronting the suggestion that powerful, hidden forces have influenced history, guiding human civilization while concealing its deepest mysteries. This framing taps into universal archetypes: the hidden teacher, the gatekeeper of wisdom, the challenge that must be earned rather than inherited. Whether real or imagined, the idea of guardianship transforms the skulls from static objects into dynamic symbols, embedded in a continuum of secrecy, ritual, and cosmic potential. The skull's supposed connection to secret societies also intersects with prophecy. Many esoteric groups claim that when the scattered skulls are reunited, they will trigger a global awakening, a surge in consciousness, spiritual insight, or understanding of the universe's hidden order. While these claims are unverifiable, they illustrate a narrative strategy common in mystical traditions: the promise of revelation contingent upon preparedness. The skulls are not passive. They are active agents in a story where knowledge, perception, and destiny intertwine. Secret societies, in this framework, are less about control and more about stewardship, ensuring that the revelations embedded within the skulls emerge at the right moment. Interestingly, the narrative of secret guardianship is not confined to Western esoteric societies. In Mesoamerica, oral histories describe the preservation of sacred objects and knowledge by select priestly classes, emphasizing careful custodianship, ritual responsibility, and spiritual accountability. The parallels are striking. Across time and geography, humans appear to recognize that certain forms of knowledge are dangerous, potent, or transformative, and therefore must be protected. Whether through crystal skulls, sacred manuscripts, or ritual artifacts, the concept of guardianship, secretive, deliberate, and often perilous, emerges as a recurring motif, linking the modern fascination with the skulls to ancient cultural patterns. Ultimately, the connection to secret societies reinforces the core enigma of the crystal skulls. They are not merely objects to be studied or admired. They are artifacts woven into a narrative of secrecy, power, and potential. Whether through Masonic lodges, Rosicrucian archives, or New Age interpretations, the skulls occupy a space that is part history, part legend, and part metaphysical challenge. They invite curiosity, reward insight, and caution the unprepared. In this context, the crystal skulls transcend mere materiality. becoming symbols of humanity's enduring fascination with hidden knowledge. The interplay between the known and the unknown, and the tantalizing possibility that some truths remain protected, waiting for the right eyes to see them. If the crystal skulls are merely artifacts, their intrigue might end with their craftsmanship, their historical ambiguity, or the mystique surrounding their origins. But the most compelling layer of their story is the prophetic one. The idea that these skulls carry a message for humanity, a warning, or perhaps guidance for a future yet to unfold. Over the decades, enthusiasts, psychics, and spiritual practitioners have claimed that the skulls contain visions of upcoming events, patterns of human consciousness, and cosmic truths that could reshape our understanding of existence. Whether interpreted literally, symbolically, or metaphorically, these prophecies have become inseparable from the mythology of the crystal skulls. One of the earliest and most persistent claims involves the Mitchell-Hedges skull. Anna Mitchell-Hedges and her father spoke of visions and insights that seemed to emerge when meditating with the artifact. These were not vague impressions, but specific, detailed experiences. Images of distant lands, landscapes transformed by water, cities both ancient and futuristic, and celestial alignments that suggested knowledge of astronomy well beyond their time. Some interpreted these visions as warnings, foreshadowing environmental disasters, societal upheavals, or the consequences of humanity's disconnection from natural and spiritual laws. Others saw them as guidance, offering clues about how to navigate a period of transformation and heightened awareness. The theme of transformation recurs across accounts of crystal skull prophecies. Some theorists suggest that the skulls were designed not merely to store knowledge, but to catalyze evolution, human, societal, or even planetary. In this narrative, the skulls act as mirrors or amplifiers of consciousness, reflecting not only what is, but what could be. Those who approach them with intention may experience shifts in perception, understanding, or awareness, glimpses of a reality beyond the constraints of ordinary experience. In this sense, the skulls are less about predicting the future than about preparing humanity for it, guiding individuals to attune themselves to patterns, energies, or truths that are already present but unseen. Some enthusiasts take this idea further, linking the skulls to a network of 13 global artifacts. According to this theory, each skull contains a piece of collective wisdom, a fragment of a broader message encoded in crystal. When united, the skulls are said to activate a transformative process, revealing knowledge that has been carefully preserved across time and space. The specifics of this knowledge are elusive, often couched in symbolic language. Warnings about environmental stewardship, encouragement to pursue spiritual development, or hints at a cosmic order that humans have only partially understood. The mystery of the skull's location and alignment reinforces the sense that these objects are guardians as well as messengers. The prophetic dimension of the crystal skulls intersects with numerous cultural narratives. Indigenous Mesoamerican traditions often frame sacred artifacts as conveyors of spiritual and temporal knowledge. Priests and shamans were believed to interpret objects as guides for navigating societal challenges, agricultural cycles, and natural events. In this context, the crystal skulls are an extension of an ancient worldview in which physical forms can carry information beyond the purely material. Wisdom embedded in structure, symmetry, and symbolism. The skulls' precision, translucency, and reflective qualities suggest that they were designed to interact with human perception in ways that go beyond the ordinary, allowing the observer to see what is otherwise hidden. Modern interpretations blend ancient symbolism with esoteric and New Age thought. Psychics and spiritual practitioners often report receiving telepathic impressions, intuitive knowledge, or symbolic images when in proximity to the skulls. These experiences frequently focus on the interconnectedness of all life, the cyclical nature of history, or humanity's potential for awakening. In this framework, the crystal skulls are not passive objects, but active participants in consciousness, designed to elicit, reveal, and amplify insight. The message is both cautionary and hopeful. Awareness, alignment, and intentionality may be required to navigate the challenges and opportunities of the future. A particularly intriguing element is the repeated mention of celestial alignment in prophetic accounts. Observers have claimed that the skulls resonate or activate under certain planetary or solar conditions, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of astronomy embedded within their design. Whether this reflects deliberate intention by their creators, synchronicity, or human interpretation is unclear. Nevertheless, the narrative strengthens the impression that the skulls are more than decorative. They may encode knowledge of cosmic cycles, serving as markers or instruments aligned to universal rhythms. Skeptics, of course, question both the legitimacy and the interpretations of these prophecies. They argue that visionary experiences are products of imagination, suggestion, or pattern recognition, rather than intrinsic properties of the skulls. Yet even the most critical observers must acknowledge the persistence of these stories across decades, continents, and cultures. From psychics in Europe to shamans in Central America, from New Age practitioners in the United States to historians intrigued by their craftsmanship, the reports converge on a common theme. The skulls are objects that provoke insight, reflection, and a sense of connection to something larger than ordinary experience. The prophetic narrative also intersects with eschatology and transformative periods in human history. Some theorists link the skulls to cycles of catastrophe and renewal, interpreting visions of flooding, societal collapse, or environmental upheaval as warnings embedded in crystal. Others see the skulls as symbols of potential, tools to elevate consciousness, unify perception, and foster understanding of the interconnected nature of life. In either reading, the skulls serve as a bridge between what has been, what is, and what may come, a medium through which humans might apprehend hidden patterns, energies, or knowledge that ordinary perception cannot easily access. Ultimately, the crystal skull's prophetic aspect challenges conventional frameworks of knowledge and temporality. They do not offer straightforward predictions or scientific certainty. Instead, they evoke intuition, imagination, and contemplation. Their message is encoded not in letters or numbers, but in form, clarity, symmetry, and the interaction of human perception with material structure. To engage with a skull is to participate in a dialogue, a subtle, often ineffable exchange between artifact and observer, between past and future, between materiality and consciousness. Perhaps the most compelling feature of these prophecies is their enduring relevance. Decades after their discovery, crystal skulls continue to inspire curiosity, debate, and exploration. They remind us that history is never fully closed, that knowledge may be hidden in unexpected places, and that perception itself can be a tool for insight. Whether as messengers of the cosmos, carriers of ancestral wisdom, or instruments for personal transformation, the crystal skulls invite humanity to look beyond the ordinary, to consider what might lie in the spaces between time, matter, and consciousness. And in this invitation lies the essence of their message, that the future is not fixed, but is shaped by those willing to perceive, interpret, and act upon the knowledge the skulls contain. The crystal skull's influence extends far beyond archaeological curiosity or mystical speculation. Over the past century, they have carved a place in museums, media, and popular culture, capturing imaginations and shaping narratives about history, spirituality, and mystery. Whether displayed in the hallowed halls of museums or portrayed in blockbuster films, the skulls have become cultural icons, symbols of hidden knowledge and human fascination with the unknown. Their impact is not only visual but conceptual. They challenge the boundaries between reality and myth, science and esoterica, past and present. Museums have played a pivotal role in shaping the skull's public perception. Institutions such as the British Museum, the Smithsonian Institution, and private collections have exhibited crystal skulls as artifacts of alleged Mesoamerican origin. These displays are often accompanied by narratives emphasizing craftsmanship, discovery, and historical context. Visitors are invited to marvel at the precision, to consider the cultural significance of human cranial symbolism, and to speculate about origins. Yet even in these controlled academic environments, the skulls evoke a sense of the uncanny. Their translucency, symmetry, and lifelike features elicit curiosity, awe, and even discomfort, responses that transcend the standard museum experience. By situating the skulls in a scientific context, museums simultaneously legitimize and mystify them, reinforcing the tension between empirical study and narrative speculation. The media has amplified the skull's legend, transforming them into symbols of mystery and adventure. Documentaries, television specials, and online content have explored their history, craftsmanship, and purported powers, often blending scholarship with narrative flourish. Channels dedicated to esoteric history, unsolved mysteries, and alternative archaeology frequently feature the skulls, emphasizing their enigmatic qualities and connections to lost civilizations. This exposure has fueled public fascination, creating a feedback loop. The more the skulls are represented as mysterious and powerful, the more audiences are drawn to explore, research, and speculate. They have become objects not merely of historical interest, but of storytelling, myth-making, and collective imagination. Films and literature have further entrenched the skulls in popular consciousness. Hollywood, in particular, has drawn upon their lore, presenting crystal skulls as keys to ancient civilizations, sources of supernatural power, or catalysts for apocalyptic events. One notable example is the 2008 adventure film, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which introduced the skulls to a global audience, blending archaeological intrigue with fantastical speculation. While dramatized, such portrayals reinforce key elements of the skull's mythology: global distribution, mysterious origin, and latent power. Literature, from esoteric texts to New Age guides, similarly portrays the skulls as instruments of wisdom, prophecy, and transformation. Across media, the skulls function as narrative devices, bridging historical fact with imaginative speculation and inviting audiences to participate in a story that is both ancient and contemporary. The spiritual and New Age communities have embraced the skulls as well, often interpreting them as tools for meditation, energy work, and psychic development. Workshops, retreats, and guided sessions incorporate crystal skulls into rituals designed to enhance intuition, promote healing, or facilitate visions. Practitioners emphasize that the skulls are not merely decorative. They are active agents, capable of interacting with consciousness, amplifying energy, or revealing insights. In this context, the skull's influence extends beyond passive observation. They become instruments for personal and collective exploration, a bridge between the material world and the spiritual or metaphysical realms. Collectors and private enthusiasts also contribute to the cultural impact. Rare skulls, especially those with contested provenance or unusual craftsmanship, command high prices and attract attention from scholars, enthusiasts, and media outlets. The process of acquisition, preservation, and display often involves a combination of secrecy and storytelling, echoing the narrative of guardianship that has long surrounded the skulls. Each private collector effectively becomes a custodian of the legend, perpetuating interest, speculation, and dialogue about the skull's significance. The commercial and personal dimensions of ownership intersect with cultural fascination, creating a complex ecosystem in which the skulls maintain visibility, relevance, and intrigue. Academic interest, while more cautious, has also contributed to the cultural impact. Anthropologists, archaeologists, and historians engage with the skulls both as material objects and as symbols of cultural imagination. Scholarly debates about authenticity, origin, and craftsmanship are themselves part of the public narrative, often reported in media, documentaries, and online discussions. This academic scrutiny, even when skeptical, paradoxically enhances the skull's mystique, framing them as objects worthy of rigorous investigation, yet resistant to easy classification. The tension between belief, evidence, and myth becomes part of the skull's story, influencing how they are perceived across social, cultural, and intellectual contexts. The combination of museum curation, media representation, spiritual interpretation, and scholarly debate has created a multidimensional cultural presence. The skulls exist simultaneously in multiple realms, as historical artifacts, as cinematic icons, as instruments of meditation, and as subjects of ongoing inquiry. This layered existence reinforces their symbolic power, suggesting that the skulls are more than their physical material. They are conduits for ideas, narratives, and experiences that extend across time and geography. Their cultural impact is thus both tangible and intangible. They shape public imagination while remaining elusive, provocative, and mysterious. In essence, the crystal skulls have become mirrors for human curiosity. They reflect our fascination with the unknown, our desire for connection with the past, and our yearning for insight into the future. By appearing in museums, media, literature, and spiritual practice, they inhabit a liminal space that is neither fully historical nor purely fictional. This liminality is crucial to their enduring allure. They challenge audiences to navigate uncertainty, to weigh evidence against experience, and to confront the possibility that some knowledge may lie just beyond ordinary perception. Across all cultures, narratives, and platforms, the skull's impact demonstrates a powerful truth. Objects, even inanimate ones, can shape consciousness and collective imagination. They provoke thought, inspire storytelling, and cultivate wonder. The cultural footprint of the crystal skulls is not simply a reflection of their rarity or craftsmanship. It is a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with mystery, the unknown, and the possibility that ancient artifacts might contain wisdom that transcends time, space, and conventional understanding. The story of the crystal skulls is as much about human perception as it is about the objects themselves. For decades, they have occupied a liminal space between belief and skepticism, fascination and doubt. On one hand, researchers, historians, and scientists scrutinize the skulls for evidence of forgery, European origin, or modern fabrication. On the other, spiritual practitioners, psychics, and enthusiasts speak of visions, energy, and mystical insight that defy measurement. This tension between empirical evidence and subjective experience has fueled an endless debate, one that continues to shape the mythology and public understanding of the skulls. Skeptics have been quick to challenge the claims surrounding the crystal skulls. Detailed examinations, particularly during the late 20th century, revealed that many skulls showed signs of modern tool use, including rotary wheels and abrasives that were not available to pre-Columbian civilizations. The British Museum, the Smithsonian, and independent researchers have conducted microscopic studies of well-known skulls, concluding that their precise shaping was likely produced in the 19th century, possibly in Europe. From this perspective, the skulls are elaborate artifacts designed to captivate collectors or perpetuate myth, rather than ancient instruments of knowledge or prophecy. Critics also point to the inconsistencies in provenance, especially in the case of the Mitchell-Hedges skull. Expedition logs from the supposed 1924 excavation at Lebanton make no mention of the skull's discovery. Documentation suggests it may have entered the collection through purchase rather than archaeological find. Skeptics argue that family narratives, romanticized adventure tales, and anecdotal accounts of mystical experiences are unreliable, serving more to market the skulls as curiosities than to convey historical fact. In short, empirical evidence appears to contradict claims of ancient origin and supernatural properties. Yet for every skeptic, there is a believer willing to challenge the conventional narrative. Enthusiasts highlight the skull's anomalous features, the flawless polish, the lifelike anatomical proportions, and the optical properties that defy easy replication, even with modern tools. The Mitchell-Hedges skull, in particular, has been examined by gemologists and engineers who concede that its precision is extraordinary and difficult to explain. Believers argue that these anomalies suggest a level of skill and knowledge that may have existed in ancient times, or perhaps that the skulls were intentionally crafted to hold energy, transmit knowledge, or interact with consciousness in ways we do not yet understand. In this view, skepticism fails to account for the skull's subtle, non-material effects and the consistency of mystical experiences across cultures. The debate extends to the metaphysical claims surrounding the skulls. Psychic phenomena, visions, and energy interactions are difficult to quantify, leaving them outside the traditional realm of scientific validation. Critics dismiss these reports as suggestion, confirmation bias, or psychosomatic reactions, while proponents maintain that subjective experiences are an essential part of the artifact's function. This tension between measurable evidence and personal insight is central to the skull's enduring intrigue. They are simultaneously testable objects and catalysts for experiences that cannot be fully measured or explained. Adding to the complexity is the global pattern of crystal skulls. Skeptics attribute most to European workshops or modern creation, yet skulls allegedly discovered in Mesoamerica, Tibet, and other regions suggest an international phenomenon that is harder to explain. Believers interpret this as evidence of ancient knowledge, cosmic design, or even extraterrestrial influence. Each skull becomes a node in a broader network, where individual anomalies, mystical experiences, and unexplained precision are woven into a narrative of intentionality and hidden purpose. Skeptics, in contrast, see a combination of coincidence, human creativity, and the human tendency to project meaning onto ambiguous objects. Media and public fascination further blur the line between belief and debunking. Documentaries, films, and online content often present the skulls with cinematic flair, emphasizing mystery and supernatural possibility while downplaying critical evidence. This amplification creates a feedback loop. Audiences encounter the skulls as objects of wonder first and skeptics second. The tension between entertainment, education, and speculation shapes public perception, allowing belief and skepticism to coexist in a delicate balance. In this context, the debate itself becomes part of the mythology as much a story as the artifacts it surrounds. Psychologists and sociologists note that this enduring debate reveals more about human nature than about the skulls themselves. The crystal skulls are mirrors reflecting our fascination with the unknown, our desire for hidden knowledge, and our need to reconcile contradictions. Skeptics seek certainty, structure, and evidence. Believers seek meaning, wonder, and connection. Both perspectives are valid, yet neither fully captures the skull's essence, leaving the debate unresolved and ensuring that the objects remain potent symbols of mystery and possibility. Interestingly, the debate fuels exploration and scholarship. Skeptics' investigations push the boundaries of material science, archaeology, and gemology, leading to innovations in testing techniques and preservation. Believers, meanwhile, continue to expand the narrative through meditation, experiential accounts, and theoretical frameworks that link the skulls to consciousness, prophecy, and ancient wisdom. The skulls function as a bridge between disciplines and perspectives, challenging humans to consider multiple layers of reality: material, historical, and metaphysical. In the end, the crystal skulls occupy a space deliberately resistant to simple categorization. They are not merely collectibles, curiosities, or tools. They are provocations that ask difficult questions about the nature of history, perception, and reality. Skepticism and belief are not mutually exclusive, but are part of the skull's enduring drama. The endless debate itself is a reflection of the skull's power. They compel attention, invite inquiry, and provoke wonder, even when no definitive answers emerge. Ultimately, the tension between debunking and belief is precisely what ensures the crystal skull's immortality in human consciousness. They are objects that cannot be fully known, measured, or controlled. They exist at the intersection of myth and reality, science and spirituality, human curiosity and cosmic mystery. Each side of the debate, whether insisting on fraud or asserting hidden wisdom, adds layers to the skull's narrative, enriching the story for future generations. In this interplay between doubt and faith, the skull's legend continues to grow, ensuring that humanity will never stop questioning, exploring, and imagining the secrets they might contain. Even as the crystal skulls captured public imagination, modern explorers and researchers have embarked on quests to locate missing skulls, study existing ones, and uncover their secrets. These expeditions combine the thrill of archaeology, adventure, and esotericism, drawing enthusiasts, scholars, and treasure hunters alike. Unlike the early 20th century discoveries, which were often romanticized through travelogues or private diaries, contemporary searches rely on technology, cross-disciplinary research, and collaboration. But the sense of mystery remains as potent as ever. One of the most notable modern searches involves the so-called 13 skulls theory, which suggests that a set of 13 crystal skulls exists, scattered across the globe, each containing a fragment of lost knowledge. Enthusiasts trace skulls in collections from Paris to London, New York, Geneva, and even remote regions in Central and South America. Each expedition is fraught with challenges: incomplete provenance, restricted access to private collections, and the skepticism of academic institutions. Nevertheless, these journeys often yield compelling results, ranging from previously undocumented skulls to historical insights about their movement and acquisition. In Central and South America, researchers frequently focus on regions tied to Mayan and Aztec civilizations. Remote jungles in Belize, Guatemala, and Mexico have been scoured for signs of hidden caches, ceremonial sites, or lost artifacts. Archaeological methods, combined with satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and careful study of indigenous oral histories, guide these expeditions. While no definitive lost skulls have been recovered in recent decades, the searches have uncovered related artifacts, ceremonial stones, engraved bones, and other quartz objects that hint at the symbolic and ritualistic importance of crystal in pre-Columbian cultures. These findings enrich the narrative, even if the ultimate goal remains elusive. Modern searches are not limited to the Americas. Europe offers another theater of pursuit, particularly France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, where skulls were historically acquired by collectors or produced in gemstone workshops. Investigators study auction records, museum archives, and private collections, tracing the movement of skulls through history. Some expeditions focus on rediscovering skulls thought lost, destroyed, or misattributed, often uncovering fascinating stories about human ambition, deception, and the desire to possess objects imbued with mystery. Each recovered skull adds both clarity and complexity, as provenance, craftsmanship, and authenticity are scrutinized anew. Asia has also become a site of renewed interest. Reports of skulls or skull-like quartz artifacts in Tibet and Mongolia have prompted field researchers to investigate local monasteries, temples, and private holdings. Often, these expeditions require navigating difficult terrain, bureaucratic barriers, and the cultural sensitivities surrounding sacred artifacts. Nevertheless, interviews with monks, spiritual leaders, and local historians sometimes reveal previously undocumented objects, ritual uses, and oral traditions connected to crystal. These discoveries suggest that the fascination with crystal skulls is not confined to Western imagination, but emerges across cultures, reinforcing the global dimension of the mystery. Expeditions also extend into laboratory analysis. Modern searches are not only about physical location, but also about scientific insight. Non-invasive imaging, spectroscopy, and 3D modeling allow researchers to examine skulls without risking damage. These tools reveal internal fractures, polishing techniques, inclusions, and structural anomalies that inform debates over origin, craftsmanship, and potential function. By combining fieldwork with laboratory investigation, contemporary explorers bridge adventure with scientific inquiry, further blurring the line between myth and evidence. Private collectors play a crucial role in modern searches as well. Many skulls remain in private hands, their whereabouts often confidential, creating a scavenger hunt dynamic. Enthusiasts maintain databases, photographic records, and anecdotal reports to track known skulls and search for those that have disappeared or remain hidden. The pursuit often involves international collaboration, requiring diplomacy, trust building, and negotiation with private owners or institutions reluctant to disclose their holdings. In this sense, the modern search is both scholarly and social, as networks of believers, skeptics, and professionals navigate secrecy, curiosity, and shared fascination. Expeditions are also shaped by technology and media. Satellite imagery, GPS tracking, digital mapping, and online archives enhance the ability to locate artifacts or identify potential sites. Social media, forums, and YouTube channels allow enthusiasts to document and share their discoveries, creating a global community of searchers. This democratization of research means that modern expeditions are not solely the domain of institutions. Amateurs and independent researchers can contribute meaningful insights, generating new leads, uncovering hidden histories, and keeping the narrative alive for a wider audience. Yet, despite decades of searching, many skulls remain unaccounted for. Some may have been lost, destroyed, or never existed in the first place. Others may lie hidden in private collections or secret repositories. This absence reinforces the skull's mystique. Every expedition, whether yielding a fragment of evidence or a tantalizing clue, underscores the idea that the skull's story is ongoing, dynamic, evolving, and resistant to final resolution. It is this uncertainty that fuels passion, drives exploration, and maintains the allure of discovery. Modern searches are not only about the physical skulls, they are also about uncovering stories embedded in history, travel, and human ambition. Each expedition reveals layers of narrative. The motivations of early collectors, the influence of colonial trade, the fascination with exotic artifacts, and the interplay between skepticism and belief. The journey itself becomes part of the mythos. Searching for skulls mirrors the search for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, echoing the ancient symbolism that surrounds the artifacts themselves. Ultimately, these modern expeditions highlight a central theme of the crystal skull phenomenon. The skulls are catalysts for exploration, imagination, and inquiry. Whether in jungles, laboratories, museums, or private collections, the act of searching transforms participants. It is a reminder that the skull's significance extends beyond materiality. They are beacons for curiosity, guiding humanity to look beyond the obvious, question assumptions, and confront mysteries that span centuries, continents, and cultures. In this way, the pursuit of the crystal skulls becomes not merely a search for objects, but a quest for understanding, connection, and insight into the deeper currents of human history and consciousness. While mainstream archaeology emphasizes human craftsmanship and historical context, alternative theories propose that the crystal skulls might originate beyond conventional history, even beyond Earth itself. These ideas, often dismissed as speculative or fringe, have nonetheless captured the imagination of researchers, authors, and enthusiasts worldwide. From extraterrestrial influence to lost advanced civilizations, these theories push the boundaries of what we consider possible, transforming the skulls from artifacts into cosmic enigmas. One of the most provocative concepts is that of extraterrestrial involvement. Proponents of this theory argue that the skull's perfection, precise symmetry, and unusual optical properties exceed what is feasible using tools available to pre-Columbian civilizations, or even 19th century artisans. Some suggest that advanced beings from other worlds either directly crafted the skulls or guided humanity in their creation, leaving behind these artifacts as markers of cosmic knowledge. In this narrative, the skulls serve as repositories of information, teaching tools, or even instruments capable of interfacing with human consciousness. Reports from psychics, mediums, and intuitive practitioners are often cited in support of extraterrestrial theories. Accounts describe visions of alien figures, star systems, and energy grids associated with crystal skulls, hinting at knowledge of astronomy and interstellar communication that predates human understanding. Some enthusiasts interpret the 13-skull network as a form of global alignment, a cosmic code designed to activate under specific celestial conditions. According to this view, The skulls are both physical objects and nodes in a larger network, bridging the human and extraterrestrial, the known and the unknown. Beyond aliens, some theorists posit the existence of lost advanced civilizations, often described as technologically or spiritually superior to our own. These civilizations, whether connected to Atlantis, Lemuria, or other mythical lands, might have possessed knowledge of crystallography, energy manipulation, and consciousness in ways modern humans can only approximate. The skulls, in this interpretation, are relics of such societies, preserved to transmit wisdom across millennia. Their distribution across continents, the precision of their manufacture, and their esoteric properties are seen as clues to a civilization that deliberately encoded knowledge in stone to survive cataclysm and time. The optical and energetic qualities of quartz also fuel alternative origin theories. Quartz's piezoelectric properties allow it to store and release energy, a phenomenon that has been observed and replicated in laboratory conditions. Some theorists suggest that the skulls were designed to exploit these properties for communication, healing, or consciousness expansion. The precision of their carving could indicate advanced knowledge of resonance, vibration, or energy fields, an expertise not achievable through conventional means at the alleged times of their creation. In this sense, the skulls are not merely objects of beauty. They may be functional devices, deliberately engineered to interact with energy and perception in ways that remain poorly understood. Alternative theories also intersect with global mythologies. Indigenous traditions in Central and South America speak of sacred objects, stone relics, and guardians of knowledge. Some scholars and enthusiasts interpret these narratives as evidence that the skulls are not isolated artifacts, but part of a broader, interconnected network of sacred technology. Legends describe objects that convey memory, knowledge, or spiritual energy, often accessible only to initiates or those attuned to subtle forces. The crystal skulls, then, are seen as part of a global phenomenon, connecting disparate cultures, time periods, and spiritual traditions in a network that transcends conventional history. Skeptics challenge these theories, arguing that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The lack of verifiable documentation, inconsistencies in provenance, and absence of definitive archaeological context make extraterrestrial or lost civilization hypotheses difficult to substantiate. Yet supporters counter that the very anomalies skeptics highlight, the precision, the optical clarity, and the recurring patterns of distribution, are themselves evidence of an origin that conventional archaeology struggles to explain. In this dynamic, the debate becomes less about proof and more about interpretation. What are we willing to consider possible when confronted with objects that resist categorization? The allure of alternative origin theories lies partly in their narrative power. They invite us to reimagine history, human potential, and the cosmos. They suggest that knowledge is not confined to linear time, conventional technology, or cultural boundaries. Instead, it may be encoded in material form, awaiting discovery by those ready to perceive it. This framing transforms the skulls into catalysts for wonder, expanding the imagination and inviting contemplation of possibilities that are otherwise marginalized or dismissed. Authors and researchers in the field of alternative history often combine these ideas with mystical and prophetic interpretations. The skulls are described as instruments that can enhance consciousness, access cosmic memory, or even influence global events when aligned with specific times, places, or human intentions. In this narrative, the skull's function transcends the purely physical. They're active participants in a web of energy, intelligence, and knowledge that spans dimensions and epochs. Whether viewed as alien tools, remnants of lost civilizations, or conduits for universal wisdom, the skulls acquire a sense of agency that ordinary artifacts rarely possess. Technology, too, becomes part of this discussion. Advances in scanning, imaging, and materials analysis have revealed features in some skulls that are difficult to reproduce even today. Internal fractures, optical alignments, and micropolishing suggest an understanding of material physics that rivals contemporary engineering. While skeptics attribute these qualities to craftsmanship and patience, proponents of alternative theories argue that such precision points to guidance, knowledge, or capability beyond what conventional humans possessed, lending weight to the possibility of extraordinary origins. Ultimately, the most compelling aspect of these alternative theories is their ability to inspire exploration, imagination, and reinterpretation of human history. Whether or not extraterrestrial or lost civilization origins can be proven, the skulls serve as catalysts for questions about what humans know, what we have lost, and what might exist beyond the boundaries of conventional thought. They encourage us to look beyond the obvious, to consider the possibilities inherent in the material and energetic properties of the world, and to remain open to the mysteries that defy categorization. In the end, theories beyond history are less about certainties and more about potentialities. They remind us that the crystal skulls are more than mere quartz. They are portals for curiosity, reflection, and wonder. By entertaining the possibility of extraordinary origins, we engage with the skulls on a level that combines intellect, intuition, and imagination. They compel us to ask not only who created them, but why, and what message they might carry for humanity across time, space, and consciousness. Whether the answer lies in history, myth, or the cosmos, the crystal skulls remain one of the most enigmatic and compelling artifacts known to mankind. After centuries of fascination, exploration, and debate, the crystal skulls remain one of humanity's most enigmatic and compelling artifacts. They occupy a rare intersection of history, myth, science, and spirituality, defying simple categorization. For some, they're evidence of lost civilizations, carriers of sacred knowledge, or keys to awakening consciousness. For others, they are marvels of craftsmanship, objects of curiosity, or cautionary tales of human imagination. Yet in every interpretation, one theme emerges. The crystal skulls endure because they provoke wonder, invite exploration, and challenge us to confront the unknown. The story of the crystal skulls is, in many ways, a mirror of human curiosity. From the remote jungles of Central America to the halls of European museums, from mystical rituals to modern laboratories, the skulls have traveled both physically and metaphorically across time and space. Each skull embodies layers of meaning. The material reality of expertly carved quartz, the historical intrigue of disputed origins, the mystical resonance reported by generations of observers, and the narrative woven by explorers, writers, and spiritual practitioners. Together, these layers create a multidimensional legacy that transcends the physical artifact, giving the skulls a life of their own in the human imagination. What makes the crystal skulls extraordinary is not only their physical beauty or historical ambiguity, but their ability to bridge worlds, past and present, material and spiritual, skepticism and belief. They exist simultaneously as objects to be studied and symbols to be contemplated. They invite empirical scrutiny while resisting complete understanding. They stimulate imagination, provoke debate, and inspire journeys, both literal and metaphorical. In this way, the skulls function as catalysts, prompting us to question what we know, to explore what we have yet to discover, and to remain open to possibilities that lie beyond conventional perception. The cultural legacy of the crystal skulls is equally remarkable. They have inspired countless books, documentaries, films, and online explorations, embedding themselves into the collective consciousness. From scholars debating authenticity to New Age practitioners meditating upon their energy, the skulls occupy multiple spheres of influence. They are historical artifacts, spiritual tools, cinematic icons, and symbols of mystery. Each encounter, whether in a museum display, a guided meditation, or a documentary, contributes to the narrative, reinforcing the skull's status as objects of fascination and intrigue across generations. Equally enduring is the debate between skepticism and belief. While scientific analysis often challenges claims of ancient origin or supernatural powers, the persistence of personal accounts, visionary experiences, and cultural narratives ensures that skepticism alone cannot diminish the skull's significance. This dynamic tension, the coexistence of doubt and wonder, is central to their power. It demonstrates that the allure of mystery does not lie solely in certainty, but in the invitation to question, explore, and imagine. The skulls thrive in this liminal space, reminding us that some truths may be partially hidden, and that human curiosity often flourishes in the presence of ambiguity. Prophecy and esoteric interpretations further enrich the skull's legacy. Stories of visions, energy interactions, and transformative experiences suggest that the skulls serve as more than historical objects. They are instruments for insight and reflection. Whether perceived as guides to consciousness, repositories of ancient wisdom, or catalysts for awakening, they challenge us to consider dimensions of reality that may lie beyond ordinary perception. In contemplating the skulls, we're drawn into a dialogue with time, culture, and consciousness, exploring what it means to be human in the face of the unknown. The modern pursuit of the skulls continues to reinforce their legacy. Expeditions, research projects, and private collections keep the narrative alive, generating new discoveries, hypotheses, and discussions. Even the act of searching, traversing remote jungles, negotiating with collectors, or analyzing artifacts in laboratories becomes part of the skull's story. Each journey reflects a fundamental human drive, the desire to uncover hidden knowledge, to experience wonder, and to connect with something larger than ourselves. The crystal skulls, in this sense, are not passive objects. They are active participants in human curiosity, shaping exploration and imagination alike. The alternative theories surrounding the skulls, extraterrestrial origins, lost civilizations, cosmic networks, add another layer to their enduring mystique. While such ideas remain speculative, they capture the imagination, inviting us to consider the universe in ways that conventional history cannot. These interpretations challenge assumptions, encourage creative thinking, and inspire reflection on the limits of human knowledge. Even without definitive proof, the skulls provoke questions that extend far beyond archaeology or geology, prompting us to engage with the profound mysteries of existence itself. Ultimately, the enduring appeal of the crystal skulls lies in their capacity to evoke wonder, curiosity, and reflection. They remind us that not all mysteries need immediate resolution. Some exist to expand perception, stimulate imagination, and inspire inquiry. In this sense, the skulls function as mirrors, reflecting both the world around them and the inner landscape of the human mind. They encourage us to confront uncertainty, embrace complexity, and remain open to possibilities that lie beyond the ordinary. As we look to the future, the legacy of the crystal skulls will continue to unfold. Whether through new discoveries, scientific research, spiritual exploration, or cultural representation, they remain powerful symbols of mystery, knowledge, and potential. They challenge us to seek deeper understanding, to question assumptions, and to explore the boundaries of history, consciousness, and imagination. In a world increasingly dominated by certainty and data, the crystal skulls stand as reminders that some truths are best approached with curiosity, reverence, and a willingness to wonder. In conclusion, the crystal skulls are more than artifacts. They are enduring enigmas that capture the imagination, challenge perception, and inspire exploration. Their story spans continents, centuries, and cultures, bridging skepticism and belief, history and myth, science and spirituality. They are at once tangible and ineffable, rooted in material reality, yet alive in the realm of ideas and experience. The crystal skulls endure because they are catalysts for reflection, inquiry, and curiosity, a legacy that will continue to captivate humanity for generations to come. In the quiet light of a museum display, the flicker of a documentary screen, or the stillness of a meditation session, the crystal skulls, invite us to pause, look deeper, and wonder. They ask a question that is both simple and profound. What is hidden within, and what might we discover if we dare to see it? And in that question lies their true power, their enduring mystery, and the promise that some secrets, though never fully revealed, will continue to inspire awe, fascination, and the unending pursuit of knowledge.